Fam, we are in full-on off-season mode. Combine in Indy, free agency right around the corner, and the Washington Commanders are making moves that are going to decide whether 2026 is the year this squad finally becomes a real contender, or if we keep being that team that has potential. And on my end, I am not accepting that second outcome, not after everything we have been through as fans, not after Jaden Daniels, not after what we saw in 2024. But bro, the offseason does not wait for anybody. Every single day, there is news, moves, quotes, and if you're not locked in, you miss the big picture. And that picture right now is full of pieces moving fast. The coaching staff is almost complete. There is a name in the draft that is making a ton of noise in analyst circles, and there is a legendary player who could come back to where it all started. Today, I'm bringing you 3 stories you need to know if you consider yourself a serious Commanders fan. We are going to break them down in depth, with honesty, with real analysis, and with all the energy this team deserves, because fam, we are building something big in DC, and you need to be informed. Stay until the end because the last story is completely insane. Let's get it. News 1. Ben Steele is the new T coach, plus the Zach Ertz decision. Okay, let's start where it hurts the most. Because if there is one position in the Commanders roster that needs work this offseason ASAP, it is tight end. No debate, no discussion. The reality is Washington finished the 2025 season with a massive open wound at that spot, and if they do not close it the right way, a big chunk of Jaden Daniels' upside is getting wasted. First things first, the Commanders just hired Ben Steele as their new tight end coach. And bro, this is not some throwaway move. Steele comes straight from the Arizona Cardinals, where the last 3 years were spent coaching none other than Trey McBride. And you know who Trey McBride is, right? Just the most dominant tight end in the game right now. The one who broke the NFL record for receptions in a single season by a tight end with 126 grabs in 2025. That does not happen by accident. That happens because there is a coach behind that player pulling every ounce of talent out daily, and now that coach is in Washington. When I saw this on Twitter, I legit had to read it 3 times. Like, for real. The move makes perfect sense within the context of all the changes the Commanders are making. David Rye, who had been the TE coach, got promoted to pass game coordinator. That promotion is well-deserved for Rye, but it left a hole in the position coaching that had to be filled. And Adam Peters did not go grab just anybody, went after one of the best tight end coaches in the league right now. Steele is not just bringing knowledge of the modern TE game, brings a true development mindset. Trey McBride did not arrive in Arizona as Trey McBride, became Trey McBride under Steele's guidance. And that development process is exactly what the Commanders need. Because the talent is already in the room. Ben Sinnott was a second-round pick. Colson Yankoff has flashed. The issue is neither of them has made that jump from promise to producer. Steele is going to have to speed that timeline up. Now let's talk scheme. David Blau is installing a brand new offensive philosophy in Washington, tied in with what Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell were running in Detroit. And fam, if you have watched what Sam Laporta and Colston Loveland have done in that system with the Lions, then you understand exactly why the tight end is absolutely critical in this offense. The tight end is not a luxury piece, not just a souped-up blocker. It is a central piece of the passing game. It is the matchup the quarterback looks for when the heat is on. It is the safety valve. It is the red zone target. It is the motion weapon that puts linebackers in a blender. And that is where the other giant offseason question walks in, Zach Ertz. Ertz has spent 2 seasons with the Commanders. 2 years where he was exactly what this team needed at that moment: experience, production, chemistry with Jaden Daniels. Together, they racked up 116 catches, 1,158 yards, and 11 touchdowns across those 2 seasons. Those are real numbers. That is the kind of production that proves signing Ertz was the right call. The problem, and there is always a problem, is that Ertz tore an ACL in Week 14 of the 2025 season. And now the age is 36, and now free agency is around the corner, and now the Commanders have to decide whether to bring back a player who is grinding through recovery from one of the most serious injuries any pro athlete can deal with. Listen, I get both sides. On one side, you have a player who knows the system, is respected in the locker room, coaches keep praising the practice habits, and has been very clear that there is no desire to end a career on a torn ACL. That last part hit me, bro. That is pride. That is someone who wants to walk away after giving everything. On the flip side, you have the medical reality. A 36-year-old receiver type coming back from an ACL has to clear two hurdles. The physical trauma and the mental trauma. A lot of players come back from ACLs. Way fewer come back as the same version they were before. And if the Commanders bring Ertz back expecting a TE1, they are betting heavy on something that could go sideways in a big way. The smartest stance, and I am saying this as a fan, not as a GM, is exactly what ESPN put out there. Check in on the health in the summer. If everything looks good, talk. If not, you should already have solved the problem a different way. Do not treat the situation as if it is solved just because there is history between the two sides. Which takes us directly to the draft and free agency. The Commanders need to find a vertical tight end, a seam weapon, somebody who forces safeties to respect deep shots down the middle and opens up windows for the outside receivers. Steele is going to be in the middle of that evaluation. It is that coach's room, that scheme, that position, and the fact that Peters went out and got this dude shows this front office knows exactly what it is doing. The Ben Steele chapter and the tight end spot is the most important storyline of this Commanders offseason. Everything else flows from having that position right. Jaden Daniels deserves a weapon there. And with Steele on staff, for the first time in a long time, there are legit reasons to believe it is going to happen. Okay, fam, that was the first story. Big, technical, real. But hang on, because what is coming next is directly tied to building the other side of the ball. And there is one name making a ton of noise at the combine and on the desks of Washington scouts. Let's roll. News 2, Mansour Delane, the island pillar. Durante Jones needs at 7. Bro, if you are a Commanders fan and you still do not know who Mansour Delane is, you need to pause everything you are doing right now and catch up, because this name is being thrown around by basically every analyst locked in on Washington, and there are very good reasons for that. Let's start from the top. Durante Jones is stepping in as a defensive coordinator for the first time in a career, and when somebody with that background learned under Brian Flores in Minnesota takes over a defense, there's one thing you can stamp in ink: the blitz is coming. They are going to blitz a lot. They are going to create artificial pressure from all over, disguise pre-snap looks, make opposing quarterbacks feel like the whole world is crashing in every time they hold the ball. But there is a brutal trade-off when you blitz at that rate. If you are sending extra rushers, you are covering with fewer bodies, which means the corners who stay in coverage have to be able to lock up receivers on their own. No safety help, no bracket coverage, alone, on the island. That is where the phrase that has been floating around all week comes from: island corner, a corner who can fight the one-on-one battle without needing somebody to come clean up behind. That is exactly what the Commanders do not have right now, and David Harrison from Locked On Commanders spelled it out. Washington needs an island pillar for Jones's secondary, and the perfect candidate at pick number 7 in the 2026 draft is Mansour Delane out of LSU. 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, a frame built for modern press coverage. When you play corner in the league at that size, you can jam receivers at the line of scrimmage, mess up the release, dominate the point of attack before the route even gets going. Delane does exactly that, and does it with a level of fluidity that is not normal for that body type. Now let's talk numbers, because the stats are nasty in the very best way. Pro Football Focus charted Delane as having given up only 7 first downs in coverage the entire 2025 season. 7 out of 185 corners in Power 4 ball with at least 30 targets in coverage. Only Jaden Kennedy allowed fewer. 7. That is obscene. That is what top-tier NFL corners do, not college kids. And the LSU context matters. That school is not a fluke when it comes to producing defensive backs. Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson, 8-time Pro Bowler, Derek Stingley Jr., now a back-to-back All-Pro with the Texans. LSU has this straight-line pipeline from Death Valley to defensive back stardom in the league. Delane is the next name in that line and might be the most complete of the bunch based on the Baton Rouge tape. What makes Delane especially attractive for Jones's system is versatility. Can play outside on the boundary as a true press corner, which is the natural home, but can also slide inside in nickel looks. That gives Jones real flexibility with the calls. You could bounce in and out of different coverage shells without losing quality at any spot. D'Angelo Hall, who played 9 seasons in Washington and went to a Pro Bowl, nailed it when talking about the scheme change. The exact line, talk about a scheme that is a little vanilla to a scheme that is aggressive. That can change lives for these corners. That hit me, fam, because it is facts. When Mike Sainristil was 100%, those flashes were legit. But what absolutely torched the secondary last year was the absence of a lockdown corner on the other side. Every time offenses found that weak side, they attacked it without mercy. Delane fixes that. Delane gives Durante Jones the piece needed to stay aggressive without constantly paying for it with busted coverages. Now, there is one wrinkle. Delane is not working out at the combine in Indy, not running the 40, not doing on-field drills. That is a small yellow flag for some scouts. But there are still meetings. Sat down with the Rams, Giants, Cowboys, and if the Commanders are as smart as I think Peters is, those conversations are happening there too, and all the info is being collected. The competition for Delane is going to be fierce on draft night. The Giants want corners. The Cowboys are always on the hunt for corners. The Rams love taking high-end defensive backs, but the Commanders have the advantage that pick 7 is a clean, natural spot to grab Delane if that name is still on the board. And with the real need this team has there, I just do not see Adam Peters and the scouting staff hesitating if the board falls the right way. Losing Marshawn Lattimore turned into a slow-motion failure. The trade never made sense long-term, and the way things played out proved it was a risk that did not pay off. Now Washington has a shot to fix that with the right player through the right process, the draft. Mansour Delane is not just a corner. This is the foundation stone of what Durante Jones wants to build in the Commanders' secondary. Y'all do not get how important this decision is. A corner at that level does not only stabilize the defense, frees Jones up to draw up the kind of schemes that swing games, force turnovers, and get the Commanders back into playoff conversations this fan base has been shut out of for way too long. Okay, bro, breathe. That was intense. But now I am bringing you the story that had me doing this face mind blown, because there is a left tackle, probably the best offensive lineman alive on planet Earth, who could, in some parallel universe where everything breaks exactly right, come back to Washington. The Trent Williams and Commanders story is coming up right now. News 3, Trent Williams, impossible return or reality taking shape. All right, before we dive in, everybody take a second because we are about to talk about Trent Williams. Trent freaking Williams, the one many people, and this is not exaggeration, consider the best offensive tackle to ever play the game. The same person the Washington Commanders let walk in 2020 for a 5th-round pick and a 3rd-rounder. A 5th, fam, a 5 and a 3 for Trent Williams, the one who then went and racked up 5 All-Pro nods with San Francisco 5 times. Okay, I am moving on because if I stay on this part, I am just gonna get mad. Here's where things stand with the Niners. Williams is in the final year of the deal. The cap hit for 2026 is $38.84 million, including a $10 million option bonus that has to be paid over the next few weeks. And San Francisco, dealing with its own cap crunch, is having a hard time finding a structure that works for both sides. Why does this matter to the Commanders? Because if San Francisco cannot or will not extend and decides to cut ties, Williams would hit free agency. And as wild as that sounds, ESPN is straight up putting this out as a real scenario to monitor. Williams is 38 years old. That is a lot for any offensive tackle. But here's why this is a different conversation. This person just got selected to a 12th Pro Bowl, 12th, and was named All-Pro for the 5th time in 2025 at 38, playing at a level that most 25-year-old tackles are never going to sniff. That body is still a war machine, and that football IQ might be the highest of any offensive lineman in the modern NFL. Now, the obvious question, how would Williams fit in Washington? The first counter you hear is the Commanders already have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. Which is true, Tunsil is a legit top-tier tackle, but hear this out. Williams can line up at right tackle, and yeah, right tackle does not get the same shine, but somebody with that kind of technique and power would make that side of the line absolutely off limits. There is another tactical wrinkle here. If Williams walks through that door, Josh Connerly Jr., the first-round pick from 2024, could slide inside at guard. Connerly showed flashes as a rookie, but nothing that screamed franchise tackle long-term. Giving a guard role while learning hands-on from the very best might be exactly the blueprint needed, and the number one reason any of this matters is Jaden Daniels. Bro, Jaden Daniels missed 10 games in 2025. 10 games, a third-year quarterback, still developing with that kind of generational juice, sidelined for 10 games. That cannot happen again. Not if the Commanders are serious about any kind of run. An offensive line anchored by Tunsil and Williams at the same time would create a protection bubble around Daniels that very few pass rush units in the league could consistently break. Now the hard part, and this has to be talked about straight up, Williams and the old Washington regime did not exactly separate on friendly terms. There were suspensions back in 2011 and 2015 for violations of the league's substance policy. More importantly, there were serious accusations from Williams about the team's medical staff misdiagnosing a cancerous growth in that player's head. That is not some minor disagreement. That left real scars. But fam, that franchise is gone. The Dan Snyder ownership era is over. Adam Peters is the GM. Dan Quinn is running the show. The whole environment is different, and Williams has proven over 6 years in San Francisco that this is a pro's pro. A model locker room leader. All that old drama belongs to a chapter that has already been closed. The key here, if this is going to happen at all, is patience. The Commanders cannot just rush out and throw some offer on the table right now. They have to sit tight and see how the cap and contract situation in San Francisco plays out. If the Niners eventually cut bait and Williams actually hits the market, that is when Washington has to be ready to move fast. Is this likely to happen? Honestly, odds are low. San Francisco probably finds a way to keep Williams because they know exactly what that player is. But the fact this is even a real conversation, the fact there are analysts and reporters kicking around this exact scenario, tells you everything about how unstable the contract picture is getting. And keeping it a buck, if Trent Williams ever puts the burgundy and gold back on, that would be one of the most poetic moments in recent franchise history. The player they gave up for basically nothing, who then became the very best in the world at that position, coming back home to protect the quarterback who can take Washington where it has never been. That would be straight cinema, bro. Absolutely cinematic. It is not happening tomorrow, might never happen, but if the Commanders are smart, somebody in that building is tracking every single development out of San Francisco every day. Because players like Trent Williams do not hit the open market twice in one career. And if it somehow happens, Washington has to be ready. Fam, look at everything happening in this Commanders offseason and tell me it does not feel different. Ben Steele brings a level of tight end development expertise this team has literally never had. The hunt for an island corner for Durante Jones shows a clear understanding of what this scheme demands. And even though the Trent Williams storyline is more dream than reality right now, the fact it is even a serious topic says everything about where this franchise is trying to go. The Commanders are not the same team we used to watch with resigned frustration 5 years ago. There is a plan, there is a franchise quarterback, there is a front office making moves with purpose, and there is a fan base, you and me, that has been waiting way too long for everything to finally click. This might be the year things really start to come together. Bro, if this content gave you something new, if you learned anything today about your favorite team, the only thing I am asking is you drop a like right now. Costs nothing, takes half a second, and lets the algorithm know this content is worth it. Subscribe if you have not already, because there is Commanders news literally every day, and I am going to be right here breaking it all down with you. Drop a comment. Do you think the Commanders should draft Mansour Delane at 7? I want to read your take. See you in the next video. HTTR fam, always.